So you walk into the living room after a long day,
Right.
and the house is, well, it's relatively quiet.
Which is usually a good thing.
Usually a great thing. But then you see it. Your kid is just slouched on the sofa, bathed in that eerie clinical blue light of a
Oh,
tablet.
yeah. The glow.
The glow.
Yeah.
And their thumb is just swiping. You ask them a question about their day, trying to make some kind of human connection, and you just get a grunt.
Or maybe a shoulder shrug.
Yeah, exactly. A shrug if you catch them between videos. And in that moment, as a dad, a very specific panic sets in.
The panic of, I am losing them to the screen.
Yes. You think, I need to get them to read a book, an actual physical book. So you dig out some, I don't know, dog-eared classic that you loved when you were their age. You walk over, you hand it to them, and they look at it and look at you like you just handed them an alien artifact.
Oh, totally.
And instantly, the living room is just a battleground.
It is a battleground. But, I mean, it's important to realize right up front that it's not a fair fight.
How so?
Well, parents feel like they are constantly losing ground, right? But they're losing ground to algorithms that are engineered by the smartest people on Earth.
Oh, for sure.
Funded by billions of dollars, and specifically designed to hijack human attention. You are essentially bringing a paperback to a psychological war.
And that is exactly why we are doing this specific deep dive today. I'm your host, by the way.
And I'm here to help unpack the research.
Right. We get this feedback constantly. Listeners reach out and say, essentially, explain it to me as a father of children. What is most important to know from a high level?
Give me the view from a distance.
Exactly. If you are a dad listening to this on your morning commute, or maybe you've got it playing while you're folding laundry after the kids are asleep, we know you are busy.
Very busy.
We know you're seeing your kids glued to screens. And frankly, you do not have the time or the energy to sit down and parse through a massive, dense academic study on adolescent literacy.
Nobody does.
Right. You just want someone to give it to you straight. You want the playbook.
And we actually have a phenomenal playbook in front of us today.
Yeah, tell me about the source material.
So the source material is this highly detailed evidence-based roadmap. It was originally designed and implemented for the Israeli education system.
Which is interesting.
It is, because it tackles this from a structural, systemic level. But when you strip away the regional specifics, the underlying data, and the psychological frameworks, I mean, they are universally applicable.
Right. Kids are kids.
Exactly. It is essentially a masterclass in how to build a sustainable, durable reading habit for kids and teenagers, specifically ages 9 to 18.
Right in the middle of this era of artificial intelligence and endless social media feeds.
Exactly.
So the mission today is extraction. We are going to pull the absolute bottom line, actionable blueprint from this research.
The tactical stuff.
The real tactical stuff. We're going to give you the high-level practical tools to turn your kid into a lifelong reader. And the best part.
No screaming matches.
Yes. We're going to show you how to do it without starting a war at the dinner table.
Which is vital, because that instinct we just talked about, marching into the living room, handing them a heavy classic and telling them it's good for them.
The classic dad move.
Right, the dad move. It is catastrophically counterproductive for a kid who has built up a massive resistance to reading.
Right. And that is the hook for today. The secret is not forcing them to read boring 300-page Victorian novels.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. We are going to unpack something the sources call a 10-page psychological trick. We're going to look at the rule of 3 for making choices.
That's a big one.
It's huge. And surprisingly, we're going to look at why letting your 16-year-old completely abandon fiction to read adult books about money and habits might be the ultimate game changer.
It really flips the script on what we think reading should be.
It really does. But before we get to the solutions, I need to understand the scale of the problem. Like, what are we actually up against here?
We are looking at a massive systemic cultural shift away from the printed word. The source material pulls really heavily from the 2024 National Literacy Trust report. And this isn't some small sample size, right? It's a massive survey of over 76,000 children.
Wow. 76,000.
Yeah. And the data is incredibly stark. Currently, only 34.6% of kids aged 8 to 18 say they actually enjoy reading in their free time.
Wait, hold on. Barely a third.
Barely a third.
So 2/3 of kids actively do not enjoy reading.
Correct. And honestly, it gets significantly worse when you look at actual daily habits, because enjoyment is one thing, but behavior is another.
Right. What are they actually doing?
Exactly. Only 20.5% read daily.
Oh, wow.
That means roughly 4 out of 5 kids are not picking up a book on a daily basis.
That's rough.
And the enjoyment factor doesn't stay static either. It drops like a stone as they get older. It is especially pronounced for boys once they hit middle school.
Just a total nosedive.
It's not a gradual decline at all. It is a cliff edge.
Okay, so I hear those numbers, and if I'm playing the role of the skeptical dad here,
Please do.
part of me thinks, well, so what? You know, times change, mediums change. I listen to the radio, my parents read the physical newspaper, my kids watch short-form videos.
Right, it's just the new thing.
Exactly. Is it really that big of a deal that the medium has shifted? But the research in our sources argues that the stakes here are not just about preserving some cultured nostalgic hobby.
No, not at all.
The stakes are heavily cognitive.
Very much so. It's a huge mistake to view reading as just another form of entertainment that is being replaced by a newer form of entertainment.
Okay.
There's a massive 2024 longitudinal study by Sun and colleagues. They tracked over 10,000 adolescents, and they looked really deeply into this.
And what did they find?
They found that reading for pleasure, especially when the habit is formed relatively early, is directly and causally linked to better cognitive performance.
Wait, causally linked?
Yes. Causally linked to better cognitive performance, fewer attention deficit symptoms, and significantly better overall mental health.
I want to pause on that because that's a huge claim. Reading a fantasy novel reduces attention deficit symptoms.
Yes,
How does staring at a piece of paper do that?
because it is literal brain training.
Okay.
The researchers pinpointed that around 12 hours of reading a week is a sort of cognitive sweet spot for these benefits.
12 hours a week.
Now, obviously, no one expects a reluctant reader to hit 12 hours right out of the gate. We'll get to that. But the underlying neurological mechanism is what actually matters here.
Walk me through that.
When a child reads a physical book, they are practicing sustained attention. They have to hold multiple threads of information in their working memory without any external visual prompts.
Because there's no screen flashing the answer at them.
Exactly. It provides repeated, rigorous practice and focus, and crucially, in understanding the motives of other people, which builds cognitive empathy.
Okay, but here is where the dad in me pushes back again.
Right now.
A lot of parents will say, hey, my kid reads constantly. They're reading text messages all day. They read articles on their phone. They read webcomics on their tablet. They're reading Reddit threads.
Sure, reading words.
Yeah, words are words, aren't they? But the source material explicitly and aggressively contrasts print reading versus digital reading. Why?
That is a very, very common assumption, but the data proves it entirely wrong. Words on a screen do not function the same way in the brain as words on a page.
Really?
Yeah. There is a 2023 meta-analysis cited in the roadmap that conclusively demonstrates digital free reading is much, much weaker for reading comprehension than reading print.
That's wild.
And it goes further. A brand new 2025 meta-analysis by Shen shows that the distractions inherent in digital reading consistently and predictably destroy reading comprehension.
Okay, I need you to walk me through the actual mechanics of that.
Yeah.
Because if the letters spell the exact same words,
Right.
why is the comprehension destroyed? Is it the blue light? Is it the font? What is it?
It is a combination of spatial memory and the neurological friction of the device's environment.
Spatial memory.
Let's start there. Human brains evolved to navigate physical landscapes, not abstract scrolling text. When you hold a physical book, your brain maps the geography of the text.
What do you mean by the geography of the text?
You subconsciously remember that a specific plot point, or like a crucial piece of information, occurred on the top left corner of the page.
Oh, wow.
Right. And it happened about a quarter of the way through the physical weight of the book.
Oh, I totally do that.
We all do. Your brain anchors the information to physical space. You feel the weight of the pages on the left hand versus the right hand. It grounds your attention.
And a screen doesn't have that.
Exactly. A screen, on the other hand, is just a slippery surface of infinite scroll. The words are essentially on a treadmill.
A treadmill.
Yeah. There is no spatial anchoring, which forces your working memory to work much harder just to track where you actually are.
So just the act of scrolling is exhausting the brain's resources.
Yes. But the larger issue is the environment of the device itself. An iPad or a smartphone is what we call an everything machine.
An everything machine.
Right. When your brain is engaged with an everything machine, a background process is always running. A part of the child's brain is always, always anticipating a notification.
Right, wondering who texted.
Or wondering what is happening on YouTube, or thinking about checking a message. That state of anticipation fractures deep attention before a notification even pops up.
Wow, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Reading on an iPad just feels fundamentally different.
It does.
It's almost like trying to eat a peaceful meal in a war zone.
Right, because your nervous system is constantly scanning for the next threat, or in this case, the next digital dopamine hit.
It's like someone is forcing you to eat a really healthy, complex salad, but while you're trying to chew, they are aggressively firing tennis balls at your head.
That is exactly what it is. I love that analogy.
You might technically be chewing the spinach. You are looking at the words, but your nervous system is in fight or flight mode, anticipating the next tennis ball.
Yep.
You aren't actually absorbing any of the cognitive nutrients because the anticipatory stress of the device completely ruins the digestion of the information.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize the cognitive load.
Yeah.
The mental energy required to actively ignore the potential distractions on a digital device just to suppress the urge to swipe away or open a new tab.
It takes effort.
It takes immense effort. It leaves significantly fewer mental resources available for actually comprehending the vocabulary and visualizing the story.
Wow.
The brain is quite literally starved of the resources it needs to build that cognitive performance we talked about earlier.
So bringing this back to the dad listening,
Yeah.
the takeaway here is that throwing your old iPad at your kid, loading it up with 100 ebooks and saying, go read, is not going to yield the neuroeducational benefits you want.
It's just not.
You aren't protecting their mental health or building their attention span. It requires a deliberate physical shift back to dead trees, back to paper.
Absolutely. Understanding the why behind physical books is the foundational premise of this whole thing.
Right. But as any parent will tell you, knowing why something is beneficial for your child and getting them to actually sit down and do it
Are two entirely different universes.
completely different universe.
Yeah. Try handing a 13-year-old a paperback and saying, here, son, this bound stack of paper will lower your ADHD symptoms and map to your spatial memory.
You'd get laughed right out of the room.
Yeah, you are going to get laughed out of the room. So knowing all this science, how do we actually get a resistant kid to sit down and read a physical book without it turning into a daily agonizing negotiation?
Okay, so this is where the Israeli roadmap pivots from theory into highly practical behavioral science.
Let's hear.
They establish a central behavioral metric that acts as the cornerstone of this entire strategy.
Yeah.
The goal for the parent is not to demand the child read a chapter a day.
Okay.
The goal is not read for an hour before bed. The floor is exactly 10 pages a day, 5 to 6 days a week.
Wait, just 10 pages?
Just 10 pages?
I have to be honest, as a dad, 10 pages sounds useless.
I know it does. If I want my kid to get better at basketball, I don't tell him to shoot one free throw, pat them on the back, and send them inside. I tell them to practice for an hour. If I want them to build an attention span, why are we coddling them with a 10-page requirement? That's what, maybe 10 minutes of reading?
It is about 10 to 15 minutes, yes. And the authors of the roadmap are very clear about this.
Right.
10 pages is not some magical scientific threshold where neuroplasticity suddenly kicks into overdrive on page 10.
Right.
It is a highly calculated planning and behavioral threshold. It is a design choice based entirely on the science of habit formation and activation energy.
Okay, walk me through the habit science because my dad brain is still screaming that 10 pages isn't enough to achieve anything.
Let's actually run the math first because the cumulative effect is what surprises people.
Okay, let's do the math.
10 pages a day, assuming you take a day or two off a week, is roughly 3,650 pages a year. If an average core novel for a young adult is around 280 to 300 pages, that 10-page-a-day habit translates to 12 to 14 books a year.
Oh, okay, when you put it like that,
Yeah.
a kid reading 14 books a year is vastly outperforming the national average.
They are in the top tier of readers at that point.
Wow.
But the genius of the 10-page rule isn't actually the final volume, it's the psychological mechanism of starting.
Starting is the hard part.
Exactly. The science of habits tells us that the brain is fundamentally lazy. It wants to conserve energy.
Naturally.
When you tell a reluctant teenager to read for an hour, their amygdala immediately categorizes that as a massive, painful expenditure of mental energy. It feels like a mountain.
So they fight you.
They fight you, they procrastinate, they argue.
Because the activation energy required to start a 1-hour task they hate is just too high.
Exactly. To make a behavior automatic, you have to lower the barrier to entry so drastically that it feels almost ridiculous not to do it. You sneak under the brain's threat detection radar. When you say 10 pages, the teen's brain thinks, well, that's nothing. I can knock that out in 10 minutes.
They can see the finish line before they even start.
Yes.
It's like telling someone who is totally out of shape, someone who desperately wants to get fit, but is intimidated by the gym, that their only goal for the first month is to put on their running shoes and walk to the end of their driveway and back.
That is the exact same behavioral principle.
If you tell them to run a 5K, they will sit on the couch.
Every time.
But walking to the driveway, you can't argue with that. You are entirely removing the intimidation factor. The goal isn't the physical workout. The goal is the psychological routine of putting on the shoes.
Spot on. Systematic reviews on childhood routines highlight that it takes weeks and sometimes months for a behavior to become truly automatic.
Right.
The 10-page floor isn't about literary endurance right now. It is about shifting the child's identity.
Identity shift.
You are systematically moving them from the self-concept of I am a kid who hates reading to I am a kid who is currently in the middle of reading a book. That identity shift is the holy grail.
And practically speaking, it completely eliminates the classic teenager excuse. I don't have time.
Yep.
Every teenager, no matter how much AP homework or varsity sports practice they have, has 15 minutes to read 10 pages. You trap them with how easy.
You really do. And what usually happens once the activation energy is overcome and they actually sit down is that they get into a good story.
Right.
They hit a cliffhanger on page 10 and they just keep reading. They might read 20 or 30 pages.
Sneaky.
Very. But, and this is crucial for the parent, you never demand more than 10. The contract you have with them is strictly 10 pages.
Okay, so we've tricked them into sitting down for 10 minutes. We lowered the barrier. That's a mechanical win. But let's play out the reality of this. What happens on Tuesday at minute 11 when they realize the book you handed them is agonizingly boring?
The dreaded boring book.
Because if they are forcing themselves through 10 pages of absolute misery every night, they are going to resent you, they are going to resent the book, and that habit is going to die a very fast, very loud death.
You are absolutely right. If the text is wrong, the mechanical habit fails completely. Getting them to sit down is only half the battle. What they are actually holding in their hands is the other half.
Okay.
This is where the parent's curation strategy comes into play. And it is arguably the most important psychological maneuver in the entire roadmap.
How do we curate the books without becoming a dictator? Because if I pick the book, they hate it by default just because I picked it.
Oh, the teenage rebellion is real.
So real.
The roadmap uses a protocol called the Rule of Three. It leverages the psychology of eponymity.
Okay, how does it work?
Here's how it works. As the adult, the parent, or the teacher, you do the heavy lifting of curation in the background. You research and select 3 appropriate, highly engaging books based on the child's age, their developmental stage, and their general interests. You present these 3 physical books to the child. They browse them. They read the back covers. They flip through the first few pages, and then they pick one.
Ah, I see what you're doing there.
It is remarkably effective. The roadmap cites data from the Scholastic Kids and Family Reading Report, which has tracked this phenomenon for years.
And what does it say?
The data clearly shows that when children choose their own books, they are exponentially more likely to finish them and to report enjoying the process.
Wow.
Self-selection is not just a nice little bonus to make them feel good. It is the social psychological mechanism for persistence.
Because it triggers their sense of autonomy. It bypasses what psychologists call reactance. You know, that knee-jerk urge to do the exact opposite of what an authority figure tells you to do.
Exactly. Nobody likes being told what to do, least of all a 13-year-old navigating middle school.
Oh, yeah.
When you hand a kid a single book and say, read this, you are giving them an assignment. You are a boss giving an order. When you present 3 books and say, which of these looks interesting to you, you are giving them agency. They own the decision.
It's essentially curated autonomy. It's a brilliant parenting hack.
It really is.
It reminds me of being a chef at a restaurant offering a specialized menu.
I like that.
Let's say you offer 3 incredibly healthy, balanced specials. The kid looks at the menu, points to one, and feels entirely in control of their order. I chose the chicken. I am the master of my destiny.
Exactly.
But as the dad, the chef, you know that any of the 3 choices is a nutritional win. You controlled the boundaries of the menu, but they exercise the power of choice.
That's a great analogy. You define the universe of acceptable options, but they choose their path within it.
Right.
However, the roadmap acknowledges that sometimes a kid will make a choice, and the book just turns out to be a dud.
It happens.
So it adds a crucial safety valve to this system, the 30-page escape hatch.
Walk me through the escape hatch. Because my instinct as a dad, the way I was raised is, hey, you picked it, you started it, you finish it. We don't quit things halfway through in this house.
I hear that from parents all the time. And that instinct is exactly what ruins reading for millions of kids.
Really?
Here's the rule. If the child picks the book, commits to the 10 pages a day routine, and by page 30, they are just not connecting with it. They are genuinely bored, the language is too confusing, they just don't care about the characters.
Yeah.
They are allowed to swap it for one of the other books. No punishment, no guilt trips, no lectures about commitment, no forced marches to the bitter end of a book they hate.
I struggle with that, honestly.
Yeah.
Why is letting them quit so important? Doesn't that teach them to give up when things get slightly difficult?
It teaches them to value their own time and their own tastes. More importantly, forcing a child to finish a book they hate causes what literacy experts refer to as reading trauma.
Reading trauma, I mean, that sounds a bit dramatic.
It sounds dramatic until you look at the long-term behavioral effects.
Yeah.
When you force a kid to grind through 200 pages of misery, you are neurologically associating the physical object of a book with punishment, boredom, conflict, and a total loss of autonomy.
Ah. So it backfires.
Entirely. If reading feels like a prison sentence, they will never, ever do it voluntarily once you stop forcing them.
That makes sense.
The 30-page escape hatch teaches them that it is okay to advocate for their own preferences. It reinforces the idea that reading is supposed to be an enjoyable, rewarding experience, and if it's not, the mature thing to do is find a different book.
Okay, I hear that. So the message for the dad listening right now is this.
Yeah.
You have to stop forcing the books you loved as a kid onto your child if they aren't responding to them.
Yes, please stop.
If you loved The Hobbit when you were 12 and you curate it and your kid reads 30 pages and says, Dad, it's just a bunch of guys walking through a forest, it's boring, you have to swallow your pride and let it go.
You do.
You have to be the curator, not the dictator.
Precisely. Let The Hobbit go. It doesn't mean The Hobbit is a bad book. It means it's the wrong book for that child at that moment.
Right.
Find 3 fast-paced, high-action graphic novels instead and let them choose. The goal right now is establishing the 10-page habit and protecting their autonomy, not achieving literary prestige.
All right, let's play out a worst-case scenario. Let's be the ultimate devil's advocate here.
Okay.
You do everything right. You curate 3 amazing, fast-paced, highly engaging books. You offer the choice perfectly. You explain the low-pressure 10-page rule, and your kid still flat-out refuses.
It happens.
They look at the printed page, and they just can't do it. Their brain is so entirely conditioned to the fast cuts of TikTok, the flashing lights of video games, that the visual processing of a dense page of black and white text is just too exhausting for them. They hit a wall.
Yeah.
What do? Do we just give up?
No, we don't give up. But we recognize that the gap between their current cognitive stamina and the physical book is just too wide. We need a bridge. And the roadmap provides a very specific, highly effective bridge for exactly this scenario, the audiobook.
Oh boy. Now we are wading into controversial territory.
I know.
I have heard parents and teachers debate this endlessly. Is listening to an audiobook really reading? If my kid listens to a book, does that count?
The cognitive research says yes, with some important caveats that we will get to. But as a tactical tool for a reluctant or struggling reader, it is incredibly powerful.
Tell me about the data.
Let's look back at the National Literacy Trust 2024 data. They specifically looked at audio listening habits. They found that 42.3% of kids aged 8 to 18 actually enjoy listening to audio.
Which is higher than the print number.
That is a higher percentage than those who enjoy print, but here is the critical metric. 37.5% of those kids explicitly stated that listening to audiobooks made them interested in reading actual physical books.
That is a massive conversion rate. Over a third of them transition from audio to physical text.
It is a remarkable conversion rate. And here is perhaps the most fascinating psychological statistic from the report.
What's that?
52.9% of the kids surveyed said that listening to stories stimulates their imagination more than watching videos.
Why is that? Because video gives you everything, right? It gives you the faces, the explosions, the scenery.
Exactly. Video is a passive medium. When you watch a movie, your brain is a passive recipient of the visual imagery. The director has done all the imaginative work for you.
Right.
But when you listen to an audiobook, your brain is highly active. It has to construct the world. It has to paint the faces of the characters, build the scenery, and imagine the action.
So they're working for it.
They are actively engaging that visualization muscle in the brain. But the real secret weapon in the roadmap, specifically for the truly reluctant reader, is what they call the hybrid method.
The hybrid method. What does that look like in practice?
It involves pairing the printed text with the audio playing simultaneously.
Oh, interesting.
You have the child sit down, hold the physical book, look at the words on the page, and listen to the audiobook play at the exact same time.
Why does that work so well? Is it just keeping them entertained with sound effects and funny voices?
It goes much deeper than entertainment. It solves a fundamental mechanical problem. It bypasses what literacy experts call the cognitive friction of decoding.
Walk me through that. What is decoding friction?
Think about what is happening in the brain of a child who struggles with reading, or who just hasn't built up the reading muscle. Staring at a dense page of text is exhausting.
Yeah.
Their brain is working incredibly hard just to decode the letters into sounds, blend those sounds into words, and string those words into coherent sentences.
Like translating a foreign language.
Exactly. By the time they reach the end of the paragraph, their working memory is totally depleted. They have no mental energy left to actually comprehend the meaning of the sentence or visualize what happened in the story.
So they're doing all the heavy, grueling lifting of decoding the symbols, but they're getting zero narrative reward. They don't know why the character is angry or what the mystery is, because they used all their brain power just figuring out how to pronounce the words. No wonder they hate it.
Exactly. It's all pain and no payoff. Audiobooks, especially used in the hybrid method, solve that bottleneck instantly.
How?
The professional narrator does the heavy lifting of pacing, pronunciation, and emotional inflection. It takes the child straight to the narrative reward. They get to experience the joy of the story, the suspense of the plot, the humor of the dialogue, without the exhausting friction of decoding.
While looking at the words.
Yes, their eyes track the words while their ears deliver the comprehension.
Okay, I hear the logic. But I have to ask the question every old school parent is thinking.
Is it cheating?
Yeah. Is this cheating? Are we just giving them a crush so they don't have to work hard?
It's not cheating, but your question highlights an important distinction. The source material is very careful to note that audiobooks do not replace the need to explicitly teach reading fluency.
So they still need to learn the basics.
A child still needs to learn how to decode text independently, but what the audiobook does is build the reader self-image. It lowers the emotional resistance. It gets them hooked on the structure of long-form narrative.
Let's build an analogy here.
All right.
Are audiobooks essentially training wheels for the imagination?
What do you mean?
Well, think about teaching a kid to ride a bike. If you just put them on a two-wheeler, they fall over immediately. It hurts, they scrape their knees, they cry, and they want to quit.
Right.
They never get to experience the joy of actually traveling down the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put training wheels on the bike, is it a crutch? Technically, yes.
Yep.
But they still have to get on the bike. They still have to pedal. They still have to steer. They are moving forward through the neighborhood, learning the route. The training wheels just keep them from constantly falling over and bleeding while they build the foundational muscles.
That is a perfect encapsulation. They are experiencing the momentum of the story without the constant pain of falling over the vocabulary.
Yeah.
And just like with a bike, once they know the route, once they love the feeling of speed and momentum, you can eventually, gradually take the training wheels off.
Think about how a dad could use this practically, day to day.
Give me a scenario.
Let's say you are driving your kid to soccer practice or picking them up from school. It's a 20-minute drive. Instead of letting them put their headphones on and stare at their phone, you put on a really gripping audiobook over the car speakers.
I love
Maybe a fantasy, maybe a fast-paced thriller. You listen together in the car. The narrator is great. The story is moving. You time it, or you get lucky, and you arrive in the driveway just as a massive cliffhanger happens.
Perfect.
A character is hanging off a ledge, or a secret is about to be revealed. You turn the car off. The kid looks up and says, "Wait, what happens next?"
And then what do?
And you just calmly look at them and say, "I don't know." But the physical copy of the book is sitting on your desk in your room. You can read your 10 pages tonight to find out.
Oh, that is a masterstroke of behavioral conditioning. You use the low-friction medium of audio to set the narrative hook, And then you use their own curiosity to drive them toward the physical book, to reel them in. You are leveraging their desire for narrative closure.
Okay. I feel like we're building a really robust toolkit here. We have the behavioral floor, exactly 10 pages a day to lower the activation energy.
Sure.
We have the choice mechanism,
Yeah.
the rule of 3, and the 30-page escape hatch to guarantee autonomy.
Yes.
We have the bridge, the audiobook hybrid method to bypass decoding exhaustion.
Check.
But none of this works if the actual books we put on the menu are wrong for the kid. If you offer them 3 boring books, the whole system collapses.
Totally collapses.
This brings us to the core of the source material, the master roadmap. What specifically to read and at what age?
This is where the Israeli roadmap transitions from psychological theory into an incredibly specific, actionable guide.
Break it down for me.
It breaks down the entire age span from 9 to 18 into distinct developmental phases. And what's crucial is that for each phase, there is a specific underlying psychological goal.
So it's not random.
It's not just about reading harder words. It's about reading themes that match the developing brain. It also emphasizes that every single year, a child's reading diet should be a deliberate mix.
A mix of what?
You don't just want one type of book. You want one hook book, something highly commercial, easy, and addictive.
Okay.
You want one local or culturally relevant book to ground them in their own society. You want one complex book to stretch their vocabulary and thematic understanding. And you want one biography or memoir to actively build empathy and expose them to real-world resilience.
Let's walk through these age brackets in detail, because this is the cheat sheet the dad's been waiting for.
Let's do it.
Let's start at the beginning of the roadmap, ages 9 to 11. What is the psychological goal here?
For ages 9 to 11, the primary goal is pure pleasure and imagination. The cognitive objective is simply building roading stamina through joy.
Just make it fun.
Yes. You are not trying to teach deep moral lessons here. You are not trying to prepare them for the SATs. You are trying to make them fall in love with the sheer act of getting lost in an alternate world.
So what books fit that bill?
The recommendations here are the massive global blockbusters,
Right.
Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, or, for the specific Israeli context of the original report, local phenomenons like El Atzmi.
Got it.
You want books that rely heavily on magic, mystery, and empowerment.
Pure engagement. You want kids discovering they have magical powers. You want demigods fighting monsters. You want cliffhangers at the end of every chapter. You essentially want books that are the literary equivalent of candy, but wrapped in really good vocabulary.
Yes, because at 9 to 11, their brains are uniquely primed for expansive world building.
Right.
They are moving out of early childhood and their imagination is vast. If you capture their attention here with pure, unadulterated narrative joy, you build a massive reservoir of positive association and reading stamina. They learn that books equal fun.
But then they grow up. They hit ages 12 to 13. Middle school.
The danger zone.
Exactly. This is where the National Literacy Trust data explicitly said enjoyment drops off a cliff, especially for boys.
Yeah.
What happens at 12 and 13, and what is the reading goal to combat it?
The psychological goal for 12 to 13 shifts to endurance and identity.
Identity.
This is arguably the toughest age bracket. Their bodies are changing, they are intensely distracted, they are overwhelmed by social anxiety and peer pressure.
It's a rough time.
And they are becoming incredibly resistant to adults telling them what to do or who to be. The strategy here has to pivot. You have to use extremely accessible formats to drastically lower their resistance.
So we move away from the dense 400-page fantasy epics. What does accessible look like on the bookshelf?
It looks like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It looks like Captain Underpants. It looks like high-quality graphic novels.
Okay.
You want books with lots of white space on the page, lots of illustrations, and most importantly, subversive humor.
Subversive humor. Why is that important?
Because 12-year-olds feel powerless, you know?
Yeah, go wait.
They are constantly told what to do by teachers, by parents, by coaches. Books like Wimpy Kid speak directly to the absurdity of being a middle schooler.
We're in on the joke.
Exactly. You get them laughing, and you keep that 10-page habit going. Because 10 pages of a graphic novel or a Wimpy Kid takes literally 3 minutes.
So easy.
It requires zero cognitive strain, which is exactly what a stressed-out middle schooler needs. And then once that habit is secure and they trust you, you slowly transition them to dystopian concepts.
Like The Hunger Games or Maze Runner. I always wondered why middle schoolers are so obsessed with dystopias.
It maps perfectly to their psychological development. At 12 and 13, kids are starting to become acutely aware of systemic power dynamics.
Right, who's in charge?
They're realizing the adult world is flawed. They feel powerless against these massive systems, schools, rules, society. So, stories about regular kids who rise up and fight against corrupt, incredibly powerful adult-run systems like the Hunger Games resonate on a very deep identity-forming level. It's cathartic for them.
Okay, so we get them through the middle school slump with a combination of humor, graphic novels, and teenage rebellion.
Right.
Then they hit high school, ages 14 to 15. The brain is changing again. What shifts in the roadmap?
Now, the overarching goal shifts to morals and justice.
Morals.
Their prefrontal cortex is developing rapidly. They are becoming fully capable of abstract thought and complex ethical reasoning.
Okay.
So you introduce books that actively challenge their ethical frameworks. You want books that live in the gray areas. The roadmap specifically recommends classics like To Kill a Mockingbird, Animal Farm, and The Diary of Anne Frank.
That makes total sense when you think about a 14-year-old. 14-year-olds are obsessed with the concept of fairness.
They really are.
That's not fair. This is basically their catchphrase.
Yeah.
They will argue with you for an hour about a household rule being fundamentally unjust.
Exactly. They have all this passionate, righteous energy, but they lack the life experience to contextualize it.
Right.
So giving them a book like Animal Farm allows them to explore systemic unfairness, hypocrisy, and the corruption of power through a safe, abstracted allegory. They can project their anger about unfairness onto the pigs and the farmer.
And it channels that combative energy into something productive.
Precisely. You are giving them a safe, contained playground to test out their developing moral compass. And literature provides this incredible, unique opportunity for repeated practice in understanding complex motives. Psychologists call this mentalization.
Mentalization.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with that term.
It's essentially the theory of mind. It's the cognitive ability to understand the mental state of oneself and, crucially, the mental states of others.
Okay.
When you read a complex novel, your brain is forced to simulate the internal lives of characters who are different from you. You'd have to ask, why did this character do that? What are they afraid of? What are they hiding?
Wow, yeah.
Reading The Diary of Anne Frank at 14 is a profound exercise in mentalization and empathy. It forces a teenager to step outside their own immediate egocentric world and inhabit the daily terror and hope of someone their exact age in a drastically different historical reality. It physically wires the brain for deeper empathy.
That is incredibly powerful.
It is.
All right, now we move to ages 16 to 17. High school juniors. And I have to admit, this is the bracket that absolutely blew my mind when I read the outline of the source material.
It's a big shift.
The goal here is listed as systems, habits, and money.
It is a radical shift, isn't it? It goes against almost every traditional English curriculum.
It's totally radical. If you ask me what a 16-year-old should read, I'd assume the answer is Shakespeare, or maybe some heavy Russian literature, or complex poetry.
Naturally.
But the roadmap suggests a massive, deliberate pivot to practical nonfiction. It explicitly recommends Atomic Habits by James Clear and The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Yeah.
It pairs those with classic dystopian fiction like 1984, but the emphasis on nonfiction is huge. Why?
There is a brilliant, deeply pragmatic developmental psychology rationale behind this exact sequence.
What is it?
Think about it. Why transition from pure fantasy at age 10 to moral allegories at 14 to financial literacy and habit building at 16? Because 16-year-olds are staring down the barrel of adulthood and they are terrified.
They are. They are getting driver's licenses. They are taking SATs. They are thinking about college applications, about leaving home, about getting jobs.
Exactly.
The real world is no longer an abstract concept. It is an impending reality.
Exactly. And because of that impending reality, they are deeply anxious.
Yeah.
If you hand an anxious 16-year-old an abstract, flowery book of 18th century poetry, they might violently reject it.
Because it's useless to them.
Not because it's bad poetry, but because it feels completely useless to their immediate pressing anxieties about surviving in the real world. Reading at this stage must feel relevant to their impending independence. Treating a 16-year-old like a capable, emerging adult who needs to understand how compound interest works and how to build daily routines so they don't fail out of their freshman year of college is incredibly empowering. It honors their developmental stage instead of infantilizing them.
I understand the theory, but let me push back hard on the specific book choices. Atomic Habits.
Yep.
That is a book I see on the desks of Fortune 500 CEOs.
Yeah.
It's about 1% marginal improvements, identity-based habits, and system design.
It is.
Are we really supposed to give a corporate productivity book to a high school junior whose bedroom is currently buried under 3 feet of dirty laundry and empty Gatorade bottles?
Especially to that high school junior.
Really?
Yes. You have to look at what Atomic Habits actually teaches beneath the corporate jargon. Teenagers often suffer from a debilitating fixed mindset.
What do you mean?
They look at successful people, whether it's an athlete, a straight-A student, or an influencer, and they think, that person is just naturally talented, or they got lucky, and I am not.
Yeah, that's common.
James Clear's book shatters that illusion. It tells them, no, success isn't about innate talent. It's just about systems. It's about small, repeatable actions. And you, even with your messy room, have the power to build a system. It demystifies success.
It gives them the instruction manual.
Exactly. And remember, you aren't forcing it on them.
Yeah.
You are still using the rule of 3. You offer Atomic Habits alongside 1984 and maybe a great sweeping biography.
Right.
But if they choose the book about habits or the book about how money actually works, you are equipping them with the operating manual for adulthood. You are showing them that books are not just theoretical exercises for English class. Books are practical tools you can use to solve your actual life problems.
It is a massive paradigm shift. It turns the book from a chore into a tool.
Yeah.
Okay, final bracket. Ages 17 to 18. Seniors in high school. They're about to walk out the door. What is the ultimate goal before they leave the nest?
The goal for 17 and 18 is judgment and independence.
Gotcha.
They're about to enter a world filled with misinformation, political polarization, and complex decisions. They need to understand how their own minds can trick them, and they need to see examples of profound personal and civic responsibility.
Okay, so what's the recommendation?
The roadmap recommends books like Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman.
Okay, wait. Thinking Fast and Slow is a dense, heavy cognitive science book written by a Nobel laureate. That is college-level material.
It is challenging, yes. It requires the endurance they've hopefully been building since they were reading Percy Jackson at age 10.
You go.
But it is essential reading. It teaches them about cognitive biases. It shows them how easily human beings are manipulated by statistics, by framing, and by emotional appeals.
That's vital today.
It teaches them how to pause their reactive fast thinking and engage their rational slow thinking. It is the ultimate defense manual for the modern information age.
And what about the narrative side?
Alongside the cognitive science, the roadmap strongly pushes powerful global memoirs. Books like I Am Malala.
Oh, okay.
Reading a memoir about a girl who literally stood up to the Taliban, who risked her life for the fundamental right to an education, does something profound to a teenager.
I can imagine.
It pulls them entirely out of their high school bubble.
Yeah.
It grounds them in stark global realities, builds immense gratitude, and fosters a sense of civic responsibility.
Let me zoom out and summarize this entire roadmap for the dad listening right now.
Yeah.
Because this is the core of the strategy.
Go for it.
This roadmap gives you permission, scientific permission, to totally abandon the classics if you have a 12-year-old who doesn't read.
Completely.
You do not need to feel guilty about handing them a comic book or Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Right.
You have to build the 10-page endurance first. You have to meet them exactly where they are developmentally.
Yes.
Pleasure leads to endurance. Endurance leads to complexity. Complexity leads to critical thinking. You cannot skip the steps.
That is a perfect summary. You don't teach someone to swim by dropping them in the middle of a stormy ocean and telling them to figure it out.
No.
You start in the shallow end, you make it fun, and slowly, over years, you move them to the deep end.
This is a fantastic, highly detailed map. But, as we all know, a map is completely useless if you don't actually put on your boots and walk the trail.
That's the truth.
We have the psychological framework. We have the exact reading list.
Yeah.
But how does a busy dad actually execute this in reality? How do I do this tonight without turning my house into a military boot camp? Because if I go home and bark orders, it's going to fail.
Oh, it will definitely fail.
This brings us to the final practical step, the dad's daily execution checklist. Walk me through the daily protocol.
The execution must be simple, it must be consistent, and above all, it must be low stress. The roadmap provides a very clear step-by-step home protocol. First rule, have a fixed place and a fixed time for reading. It should be bounded to 15 to 25 minutes maximum. Got it. Maybe it's right after dinner while the kitchen is being cleaned up. Maybe it's right before bed. But it has to be tied to an existing routine.
That goes back to the time and place conditioning of habit formation we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
You anchor the new habit to an old, established habit.
Exactly. Second rule, and the authors stress that this is absolutely non-negotiable, the phone must be physically out of the room.
Out of the room.
Not on silent, not face down on the desk next to the book, out of the room. We know from the Shen meta-analysis that even the mere physical presence of the smartphone fractures attention and creates anticipatory stress.
Right.
The reading environment must be a sanctuary from the device.
Okay, I want to paint a visceral picture of what this looks like. Let's role play the execution. Picture this. It's 7:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. The dishes are done. Your kid is eyeing the Xbox controller. You don't yell. You don't make a big dramatic speech about the value of literature.
No speeches.
You just point to their room or the reading chair. You remind them of the 10-page agreement. They roll their eyes. You expect the eye roll. You embrace the eye roll. That's fine.
It's part of the process.
They leave their phone on the kitchen counter.
Yeah.
They go into their room. They read their 10 pages of Wimpy Kid or Hunger Games. 50 minutes later, they come out.
Okay.
Now what? Because my dad instinct is to interrogate them. Did you actually read it? What happened in chapter 3? Who was the main character?
Yeah.
I want to make sure they didn't just stare at the wall for 15 minutes.
And if you do that, you will destroy the entire system.
Really?
Absolutely no interrogations, no quizzes, no asking for plot summaries. The moment you do that, you turn your living room into a classroom, and you turn yourself into a teacher grading their performance.
Oh, I see.
Reading becomes a test again. The roadmap instructs parents to ask exactly one question after the reading session. Just one. You ask, what surprised you?
Just what surprised you? Nothing else.
Just that. It is a brilliant, open-ended psychological tool.
Why that question specifically?
Think about what that question does. It doesn't test their memory of the plot. It doesn't put them on the defensive. It asks for their subjective, emotional experience.
Right.
Maybe a character's choice surprised them. Maybe a weird vocabulary word surprised them. Maybe they were surprised that they actually liked the chapter and didn't hate it as much as they thought they would.
That's a great point.
It changes the dynamic entirely. It moves the interaction from an academic interrogation to a shared human curiosity.
I really love that. It operates on the exact same logic as picking your kid up from school.
How so?
If you ask a teenager, how was your day? What did you learn? What do you get? You get a one-word grunt. Fine. Good. Nothing. They shut down. But if you ask, what was the craziest thing that happened at lunch today? Usually, you are inviting actual storytelling. You are asking for gossip or a specific anomaly. It lowers their defensive walls immediately.
Exactly. It invites a conversation on their terms rather than demanding a report on yours.
Okay, what about tracking the habit? Because my kid is obsessed with snap streaks and daily logins for video games and closing the rings on their smartwatch.
Yeah.
They're wired for gamification. Do we use that?
You absolutely use that. You leverage that exact same psychology, but you direct it toward a healthy goal.
Oh.
The roadmap suggests keeping a simple, highly visible tracking sheet. Put it on the fridge or whiteboard in the kitchen. But, and this is key, you aren't tracking their reading level or how fast they read or grading their performance.
Right.
You are purely tracking the streak. You just check off the days they hit their 10 pages.
So you are taking the exact same psychological gamification that tech companies spend billions on to keep kids addicted to screens, and you are hacking it.
Yeah?
You are channeling it toward building their identity as a reader.
Yes. You focus entirely on positive reinforcement of the behavior, not the outcome. Hey, you are on a 14-day reading streak. Let's go get ice cream. You celebrate the consistency.
Okay, this all sounds doable, but I know there is one more piece of data in the roadmap, and it's the hardest pill to swallow. It's the part of the checklist that requires the dad to look in the mirror.
Yes, it is. The 2025 data from HarperCollins on reading habits is incredibly sobering.
What do they find?
It focuses not on the kids, but on the parents. It shows a steep, sustained decline in parental modeling.
Parental modeling? You mean kids actually seeing us, the parents, reading books?
Yes. The data shows that adults, specifically parents, are reading for pleasure less and less. We are just as addicted to the screens as they are.
Wow.
And the problem is, children are incredibly highly attuned hypocrisy detectors. They watch what we do far more closely than they listen to what we say.
That's for sure.
A father cannot mandate that his kid go into the other room, put their phone away, and read 10 pages for their cognitive health, while that same father sits on the living room couch, bathed in the blue light of the TV, simultaneously scrolling through Twitter or watching TikToks on his phone.
Ouch.
The environment of the house must normalize analog focus.
Oh, man. That stings. That is the hard truth right there, and I think a lot of dads listening just winced. You cannot lead from the couch with a smartphone in your hand.
You really can't.
If it is the 20-minute reading time for the house, the dad needs to put his phone in the kitchen too.
Yep.
Dad needs to crack open a physical book, a magazine, a printed newspaper, something printed on actual physical paper.
You have to walk the walk. If you want your children to value deep, focused attention, you have to demonstrate that you value it yourself.
Right.
You are the architect of the household culture. If the culture of the house is that reading is a chore we force on the kids while the adults play on their phones, the habit will never stick. But if the culture of the house is that reading is a shared, quiet, respected activity, it changes everything.
That is a profound, challenging takeaway. We've covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's zoom out and recap this entire toolkit for the dad who is pulling into his driveway right now, about to walk inside and see his kid on the tablet. Give me the high-level summary.
Here is your blueprint. First, stop fighting about massive reading goals. Establish the behavioral floor. 10 pages a day is the magic number to lower the activation energy.
10 pages.
Second, stop dictating the books. Use the rule of 3 to curate healthy choices, give them the illusion of control, and let them use the 30-page escape hatch if the book is a dud. Protect their autonomy.
Autonomy is key.
Third, if they are deeply resistant, use the audiobook bridge. Pair the audio with the physical book to remove the exhausting friction of decoding while still giving them the narrative reward.
Training wheels.
Fourth, follow the developmental roadmap. Let 10-year-olds read pure fantasy, let 13-year-olds read funny graphic novels, and treat 16-year-olds like capable young adults by giving them practical books on habits and money.
Meet them where they are.
And finally, execute daily without the pressure. Ask just one question. What surprised you? Track the streak on the fridge, and for the love of everything, put your own phone away and let them see you read.
That is the blueprint.
Yeah.
It is highly structured, it relies on proven behavioral science, but it remains entirely adaptable to the individual personality of your child.
It's built to work for them.
We've talked a lot today about the cognitive benefits. We've talked about the test scores, the attention span, the protection of mental health. But there is a line deep in the source material's overarching philosophy that really struck me, and I want to leave the listener with this thought.
Go ahead.
It's about a concept called cognitive resistance. Think about the world your kids are growing up in. We live in an age where trillion-dollar tech companies spend billions of dollars employing the smartest engineers on Earth to intentionally hijack our children's attention.
That's the reality.
They're building endless, fragmented, dopamine-driven algorithms designed to keep them swiping. What if the ultimate act of parental rebellion against that system isn't unplugging the router? What if it isn't some strict, agonizing digital detox weekend that just makes everyone miserable?
Right.
What if the ultimate rebellion is simply raising a kid who has the endurance, the focus, and the agency to sit quietly in a room with a physical book for 30 minutes? It's no longer just about literacy, Dad. It's about cognitive defense. It's about giving your kid their own mind back.
That's a powerful way to look at it.
Think about that tonight when you hand them those 3 books. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.